societies and economies is confronted with global threats that could significantly undermine their resilience and security. This includes climate threats and the technological transition driven by the urgent need to reduce anthropogenic impact on the environment. But the so-called green technological transition requires new engineering and technical solutions, implying intellectual effort, and scientific schools have long been established, working on fundamentally new technological platforms, developing comprehensive technological complexes for environmentally neutral. This enables them to implement a sustainable development policy, evaluating progressive advancements through the lens of society's ability to achieve better economic outcomes while preserving the environment and improving the quality of life. The evident connection between the system of generating and implementing the economic potential of new knowledge, formed within the higher education system, and the country's ability to realize the concept of sustainable development underscores the importance of restoring such a connection for Ukraine. The country's economy, in its pre-war format and structure, is currently undergoing catastrophic destruction, and the demographic situation, exacerbated by forced migration, calls into question the country's ability to retain the necessary human capital for post-war revival, especially in its intellectual dimension. This makes research aimed at identifying the potential of higher education to ensure intellectual leadership in the strategic planning and implementation of transformational processes in the economy and societal life particularly relevant. Higher education, by taking a proactive role in shaping development trends and preparing professionals with the necessary set of competencies to implement defined strategic tasks, is expected to play a significant role in addressing these challenges. Research indicates a close connection between a country's education index and its environmental performance index. However, there is a somewhat weaker correlation between the environmental performance index and the index of high technology export. Authors acknowledge this and do analyze the reasons for such inconsistency. For Ukraine in its current state, it is crucial not to lose the ability to produce high-tech products, as domestic production of such goods forms the basis of the country's defense capability. The concept of sustainable development is now recognized as best meeting the requirements of maintaining a balanced interaction between humans and nature. The main thesis of the concept is the increasing role of the social component in development tasks. Among these priorities, quality education, ranking fourth in the list of sustainable development goals, stands out, enabling individuals to realize their intellectual potential in various professional activities requiring specialized knowledge and skills. Higher education must meet societal needs for quality professional training for the new generation of economic participants by substantiating the content of educational professional programs with knowledge that forms the basis of graduates' future professions and successful self-realization in society. In the context of sustainable development goals, knowledge specific to each profession should be complemented by an understanding of the close connection between the consequences of human activity and the state of the environment. To confirm this conclusion, data from the ranking assessment of countries based on the level of education and the level of high-tech product exports were used, published annually in the global indices. The reflection of the interdependence of the rankings of both indices is presented in Figure 1. The highest ranking of both indices, reflecting the country's best position in the total sample, has a value of 1. Countries with the highest ranking values are located in the bottom left part of the figure. As seen in Figure 1, Ukraine ranks 42nd in the overall rating of high-tech product exports among 200 countries. The education index is 0.52, maximum 1.0, suggesting that Ukraine's intellectual potential is quite high for generating new knowledge and implementing it in engineering, technology, and innovation. For Ukraine in its current state, it is important not to lose the ability to produce high-tech products, because the own production of such products is the basis of the country's defense capability. From the perspective of realizing the potential of new knowledge, it is also important to observe the connection between a country's spending on education, as a percentage of GDP spent on education, and its ability to be a participant in the international market for high-tech products. To determine the correlation between these factors through their rating evaluation, we utilized the existing array of global indices data. However, despite their low ranking in education spending, 75 to 100 out of 200 countries, they have a high rating for the High Technology Export Index. To understand the reasons for this deviation from the previously described trend, it was deemed appropriate to analyze a sample of countries from the top 10 exporters of high-tech products, excluding the United States and Mexico, for which education spending data are not available. These countries allocate a significant portion of their educational expenditures to adult education. The positioning of these countries in the ranking evaluation of both indicators is presented in Figure 3. The explanation for such an inverse relationship can be demonstrated on our article. Transformational leadership is a term used to describe leadership characterized by strategic thinking and anticipating the future. It has a decentralized nature and relies on broad support from followers, to whom authority is delegated for active participation in the transformations occurring in socio-economic systems. The term, transformational leaders, traditionally refers to individuals with a set of competencies capable of radically changing the organizational environment in which they work, starting from the mission, structure, functional purpose of individual elements, and their relationships, ending with a change in corporate culture. Burns, Bass, and others. In our opinion, attributes of strategic foresight and the formation of a conceptually new approach to building the model of economic system functioning in a highly dynamic environment with a new set of resource constraints should be present in higher education as an important societal institution. In our view, higher education leadership should be considered through the lens of its transformative impact on this environment through complementary integration of processes for generating new knowledge and disseminating it. The author's position is that transformative leadership can only be realized based on an anticipatory approach in management, which shapes a proactive approach to working with the market. Obviously, achieving proactivity should be the goal of all higher education institutions, competing among themselves in the quality of educational products, the efficiency of organizing the educational process, and its effectiveness in imparting competencies relevant to the future chosen specialties. The author's vision of the model of higher education institution functioning based on proactivity and transformative leadership principles is presented in Figure 4. The more competitive higher education institutions will be those that recognize the vectors of structural transformations in the global economic space at an early stage. This will provide them with sufficient agility to incorporate the necessary knowledge components into the structure of current educational professional programs or in the development of new ones. They should expand the portfolio of graduates' competencies, preparing them for professional activities in the face of future structural shifts. Thus, it can be argued that higher education institutions will ensure the expanded reproduction of the country's intellectual capital. Fig. 5. Summarizing, transformative leadership in higher education was defined as the ability to ensure the expanded reproduction of the country's intellectual capital in the context of global trends in technological development and socio-economic progress. This is achieved through the proactivity of higher education institutions in shaping and disseminating new knowledge, which serves as the foundation for defining the directions of social and economic transformations. We substantiated the tasks of such leadership for higher education institutions and emphasized its proactive nature. The content was structured, and the main directions of proactivity and leadership of higher education institutions in the processes of transforming socio-economic systems were delineated. Development of higher education directions and financing of research works according to the 1. Hausman-Hidalgo Economic Complexity Index, ECI, the logic of which is tied to high-tech exports based on two criteria: diversity and ubiquity. Diversity refers to the quantitative list of high-tech goods exported by the country, while ubiquity is the number of countries also exporting high-tech goods. The higher the list of goods and the lower their ubiquity in the country's exports, the higher the index. 2. Coverage of the population with digital education and inclusion of a sub-index of higher education digitization into the official Ukrainian Digital Transformation Index. 3. expansion of grant funding for education acquisition and conducting research work through budgets at all levels. Implementing these recommendations will be of practical importance for reforming the system of higher education in Ukraine in relation to the priorities of sustainable development. Thank you for your attention.